Hey everybody, this is Nick and Steve. Not to confuse you, I'm Steve, he's Nick.
Hey!
Hey! Right now we're driving around scenic Bloomington, Minnesota. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. It's nighttime. And we're discussing, what are we talking about?
A lot of different things, mainly consciousness, mental illness, shamanism, spirituality, religion, a multitude of subjects.
That's right. And we'd love to take your calls, but unfortunately we do not have the technology set up right now to do something like that. But maybe in the future we'll do something where you can ask questions, and you know, it's something to look forward to. But basically, would you say spiritual guidance or guidance? Like we have a guidance system inside of us, maybe?
I think we all do. It's just a matter of tuning into it, so to speak.
And you think it's something that, like, I guess, is difficult? Or is it something that, like, you know, there's, like maybe when we're younger, we have, like, this, it's wide open to, like, whatever the universe is going on. Like, animals are cool, colors are cool, you know, everything's kind of exciting, or some things are really scary. But then, like, maybe it gets dumbed down, or we get, like, kind of, like, you know, our defense system goes up, or we shut down a little bit, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, to an extent. I feel like life in some regard is a roller coaster ride. It's got its ups and its downs, kind of like the thing that Bill Hicks said, that it's just a ride that we're on, so to speak. But really it's just what you make out of it. And
yeah. It's funny, I was having, like, a nice daydream about how Bill Hicks is, like, basically his celestial being or his spirit is traveling around the universe, and, like, he can call out to you at any time, and you can hear him in your consciousness, like, or I do, like, I'll think about it, and he'll be like, yeah, man, I'm flying through the universe, it's fucking sweet, you know, it's just, like, stuff like that, and it's just, like, you know, it's, like, he'll be there whenever that time comes. And it's like, you know, if you could think about, like, people guides that could be there for you when, you know, whenever that experience happens for you, you know, I'm basically saying afterlife, but, like, you know, not to rush the situation, but, you know, like, for me, it'd be, like, people like Hunter S. Thompson, Bill Hicks, you know, like, that would be, like, there to be like, all right, we're going to go through Saturn right now, you know, it's going to be crazy, you know, we're going to go to this other parallel universe, and, like, it's going to be a little intense, but it'll be cool, I promise, and stuff like that, you know.
For sure. Well, I think we should give people a little background on how we met each other, Steven.
Sure.
If you'd like to give the introductories there.
Well, we met on Tinder. No, we met at Fairview Southdale. In the, I'm not sure if it's acute psych or what they call it, but basically the psych ward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked. I don't remember what our first conversation was about. How it started, anyways. But yeah. Anything to that? We started talking.
Yeah, I feel like our major connecting point was this stain on the carpet.
Well, I was thinking the stain, yeah.
And we started talking about this stain on the floor like it was some sort of, like, deity, or it was just like a holy stain or something, like it had divine powers.
Right.
And we just kept discussing it, and then that just kind of became like our bonding moment was over a stain of Pepsi on the floor in the psych ward, and it was pretty great.
Yeah. wasn't going to go anywhere. It was going to be it was going to call out to us. We should acknowledge its worth. That we couldn't go outside. We had to, we were limited to the confines of the hospital. And, you've read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or however you say it, right?
I saw the movie.
I've seen the movie too.
Yeah.
And nobody wants your visit to the hospital to play out like that. And it was kind of a different experience for me to actually talk to somebody that wasn't it's just I have a diagnosis. My diagnosis is schizoaffective. I'm not ashamed of that. I've had moments where I was really pissed off about it, but it was just we started talking about something that in the way that I remember talking about stuff like comic books or video games or how things are ridiculous or how things are cool, and it just kind of woke me up a bit to this isn't gonna be so bad, and making a friend in a situation in which you really don't really know what you're gonna expect every day. You're kind of told what to do a lot, and it's just not it's not it's kind of if you make a friend in high school, if you don't like high school, or if you're doing something you basically don't want to be doing, but at the same time you're kind of limited to your choices on what you can do, and yet then you meet somebody and it's oh, this is fucking cool, and then it's but then it's we kept talking, hanging out, and we made some music together. We were working on some tonight, and then we were just let's start recording this.
Yep.
Yeah. Kind of rambled there a bit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, we were already having a pretty deep discussion about spirituality and just kind of psychotic episodes or what have you, and just trying to find a way to not necessarily overanalyze it, but just think of it in terms of this is something that happens and you just kind of run with it. You don't necessarily give it the credence of saying that this is reality or this is objective or what have you, but to just interpret it and move on and, prepare yourself for those moments where you're not really ready to, accept something that's outside of your own personal paradigm, or, I guess just what would you call it, phenomenon or something that's...
Yeah, interject?
Yeah.
I was basically just thinking, as we're driving down this road, that it's we both kind of want to be the Ghostbusters, yet we don't necessarily want to kill ghosts for the sake of killing ghosts, or be trophy hunters. It's just it's, if you think about it like that, to where it's if you think about the best part of being able to talk to ghosts or spirits, or be what is it called, a Vesper? Is that what it is?
What do you mean?
Or maybe I can't remember the word. It's somebody that can commune with spirits and ghosts and stuff like that. I thought it was
a medium?
It's not a Vesper. Yeah, basically like that. But but not in a confrontational we know better. But it's just basically there's being in awe of kind of the moment that you're in, and then knowing that there's kind of a connection to just science and theories about religion and spirituality, and not just throwing everything out and being none of it matters, but at the same time kind of writing our own story, or our own religion in a sense, or theory on things, and living life and experiencing things, but being grounded in what we know to be the physical universe, but yet still kind of always kind of being kind of chill, and kind of hey, this is it. It's like you said, like Bill Hicks said, it's a ride, right?
Right.
So it's just, whatever you call it, life or universe, everything.
Existence.
Yeah. So I don't know.
You betcha.
I kind of want to be a Ghostbuster, don't you?
I used to be.
Okay, yeah.
But now I just want to be friends with ghosts.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes, sirree.
Yeah. Oh, man.
What else you got, Steven?
I was just thinking about how I could smoke without it getting too noisy with the window down. So.
Just roll the back window down.
Alright. Yeah, I mean, like, we're driving around my hometown, and it's like I've seen these roads many times, and I've walked on them, I've ridden my bike, I've taken the bus, driven cars, and like, we're passing the cemetery right now that I remember one time, there was this kid that I went to school with, his name is Joe, and he passed away really young. And I remember when I first came back to Bloomington after not living here for a long time, I kind of just stopped there and I was like, I just kind of like thought about like how it was kind of like, it was like a moment where I was like kind of accepting that he was gone. And like, I don't know if that's a cemetery. I doubt it's a cemetery he's at, because it's a really old cemetery. But it just was like a moment for me. And it's like I have moments like that where it's like something will remind me of somebody. Like, it's like when you walk across a bridge, across a freeway, and usually, sometimes you see people put flags up or like flowers up for somebody. And it's kind of something like that for me. And it's like, I didn't know if I was becoming like overly sensitive about certain things, or like just like something was calling out to me at that moment in my memory or recollection. But it's like, it's always fascinated me that like, I guess I can't say it always has, but it's like the changes I've gone through since like I was like a teenager, where I didn't think about that stuff at all. And like now it's just kind of like, it's kind of fun to be more like emotionally on point, but like at the same time, it's like sometimes you deal with things by like having like kind of like something that was sad or something that was happy, it just gets triggered by something, and then you're just kind of in that moment.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I'd actually had a dream where he was talking to me in a car, and he was like, man, it's gonna be alright. And that's basically, and we were just like, it was like we were kids again, but we were in a car, and we were just sitting there, and like he was like, you know what, like, basically, I'm dead. And I'm like, well, yeah. And like, but we were just like, there's like a baseball field, because we played baseball together.
Yeah.
And like, people were playing baseball, but we were just sitting there chilling for a minute. And it was like, it wasn't a very long dream, but it's something I still remember. And it's like, it's kind of one of the shitty things about life is that, people that you go to school with or your friends from when you're a kid, sometimes they die young, And it's like, you kind of wonder like that, maybe if I could have had like, I wonder what they'd be like if they were now here, or what they thought about, or what they'd think about this if they thought I was crazy, or, because they knew me back before I got diagnosed or before I went to the hospital, I don't know. And it's like, you think about all the people that like believe in like God or like ghosts or spirits and stuff like that, and it's like, some people are agnostic and they don't really want to say like, well, I believe in one thing, or they say they hate religion or whatever. And I just kind of know what your thoughts are on like, like kind of what I'm rambling about right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's driving, so he's got to concentrate.
Well, I think the main thing there is, it's like what they tell us at my job.
Yeah.
I'm in sales, so they always say keep it short and simple.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking to a customer and you keep rambling on and over-explaining things, they generally are not going to want to listen to you.
Right.
And I think we're all guilty of doing that at times. But in the same sense, it's like sometimes you feel like you need to over-explain things because you feel like maybe people aren't at the caliber of intelligence of being able to understand you or what have you. But I think that's just human nature. But I think in terms of what you were talking about is just, it's good to respect where people come from, and even to understand that you may not know like what a person has been through.
Right.
And that there's just, you can't judge a book by its cover, essentially. And so with that, it's like we're all just kind of, I don't know, I guess the way I'd explain it is this one guy, he wrote out all of his ayahuasca experiences, and the very first experience he had was of himself in this elephant universe or something. They were like these elephant humanoids, and he said they were the most beautiful beings that he'd ever seen in his life. And the way that he appeared to them was like a quilt with all these different patches just all over his body, and all the patches all over his body were his different memories and experiences of things that had happened to him. And the elephants were looking at the quilt that was himself, and they were tearing off the patches of like the negative or bad, which obviously are just words or ways to define things, but they were basically taking off all the patches of things that they felt like he didn't need, that were holding him back. And just that, you know, we all have those kind of hardships or experiences that just sort of bring us down, and bring the morale down, and that really, like, I wouldn't even necessarily say that those aren't things that we need, because I feel like those are the things that we need most in our lives, because those are the things that drive us and push us to overcome whatever difficulties we may have in our lives. And that's the same way that I look at mental illness now, is that mental illness is actually like the best thing that could happen to you, because it means that there's something in your life that needs to change in order for you to feel good about yourself.
Right.
And that is generally perceived as like, oh, you know, well, we need to have you talk about this, and we need to give you medication, and, you know, what have you. And I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. I mean, I think people do whatever they need to do, however they were raised and however they perceive to be healed. But ultimately, it's, you're relying upon yourself to learn from those experiences and to do whatever you need to do to pull yourself up and out of them, and then encounter even more difficult and challenging experiences and learn from them too, you know? So it's just like, I just talk about it as like building character. And then people say, well, I've built enough character in my life. And it's like, well, it's an ongoing process. You're never done building character. Level 99 isn't the highest level that you go to in this live action role-playing game that we call life. Yeah. You know? Like, it's all relative. Everything is relative, but there comes a time where you shouldn't obsess over things, because that's where people go insane, or they just lose it because they're too caught up in these, you know, infrequent things that happen that can be terrifying and out of the norm. And those, you know, they're basically just things to take in consideration, like a theory or a dream. You know, they're not something that is you should spend the rest of your life trying to interpret or define, because I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but there's more, obviously there's more to life than just working and eating and watching TV or playing video games or whatever, but, it's just, I don't really know what I'm trying to say. You take over here, Steven.
Well, couple things. So basically, when you were saying, I was thinking, without shadows, how would we know light? So we have light, pure light, and then we have, the shadows. Basically, it's nighttime right now, so there's lights, and there's shadows. So, the whole, elephant universe thing, which sounds amazing, is, it made me think about, how, the Cthulhu is, considered, this scary thing, right? It's based on Lovecraft's ideation, or his idea.
Yeah.
Of, these elder gods that are terrifying or whatever. Cause people to go insane. I don't know. And, I was thinking, well, maybe, Cthulhu are, elephants more, but they're, they haven't evolved into, land elephants, because they're, ancient. And so maybe they're not meant to be super scary things, but, it's kind of with the xenomorphs in Alien, where it's, they're made into these terrifying hunters, and the predator's gonna kill people and everything like that. And then I was thinking, I don't know everything about the lore of those characters, those aliens and stuff. But I thought about this. It's if we have a celestial royal court, for every species in the universe, kind of like the Justice League, and it's maybe the Predator alien, or the Xenomorph alien, or the Cthulhu, they're all represented in this royal court, and because they're all of a bloodline, and every fictitious character or character from every lore, just think about it, has some sort of planet or homeworld, but yet we convene in the minds of human beings on Earth to prepare us for whatever's next in the universe. And now, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but if you compare it to the theory that there's nothing else out there, or all the dinosaurs were fake, or whatever people throw around, it's kind of it reassured me, just in my own viewpoint on what's scary, or what's scary about xenomorphs. Well, they spit acid, and they have face huggers, and they hunt people, apparently, or whatever. But it's those are movies, and human beings, or mankind, has a tendency to always paint things in very black or white, or evil versus good, as opposed to thinking about think about the alien, the xenomorphs, basically, I'm saying that right? The xenomorphs, or something like that?
Xenomorph, same difference.
Basically, if they had their own homeworld where they didn't actually need to hunt human beings, and the only reason they hunted them is because they were being harvested and turned into weapons for the evil corporation or whatever, if you take it in that sense, and then they basically felt threatened, so then they started attacking, any wild animal will do, a mountain lion will do, or something like that, or a tiger or a shark or something, and they're not necessarily, their role in the universe isn't to be the predator, not to confuse the two alien species, but predator versus prey and whatnot, and I think about the trajectory of human mankind, and it's our role in the universe, and are we really always going to be consider ourselves the hero protagonist, infallible agenda of anything out there, we must conquer it or make it submit to our will? Because there's clearly maybe you could call it just anecdotal evidence, or fiction or whatever to base this upon, or science fiction, but it seems pretty stupid. Even if we look at it just on Earth, the way we interact with other countries or races, with the divides that there are, is that there's always this this projected dominance over one or the other. So, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's, I feel, just kind of inherent animalistic sort of trait.
Yeah.
But it's not something that we necessarily need to fall into.
Right.
The predator-prey
Yep.
sort of concept of things, but in some sense, I feel like our minds are just sort of hardwired that way.
Right.
And it can be hard to get out of that particular way of thinking. But I don't know, I mean, there's things you can do to get yourself into a more ideal way of perceiving those kinds of things too, like just the circle of life, the, the niche or or the, different hierarchies or what have you, but
yeah.
I don't know, I mean, I just kind of feel like it's all relative. It's to be acknowledged, but not necessarily to be thought of as like, this is the way that it has to be, because nothing really has to be any way except for the way that you think it should be. And in that sense, I just mean everyone is unique and everyone has the freedom to interpret things and perceive things and think about whatever they want to think about without at the same time having to impose their ideas on others, like saying this is the way it is and this is how you have to do it because the textbook says so. And obviously we've all had our moments of feeling rewarded by following the prescribed routines and at the same time rebelling against them and thinking that we know better. And I feel like it's anything else. There needs to be a degree of balance, a degree of rejection, and a degree of accepting it too. And that can be tricky because, you're talking about nihilism, you're talking about anarchy, you're talking about conformity, and these are, conflicting concepts, but at the same time, they all stem from one basic source of human logic, and so, it's not necessarily anyone's right to say, like, this is, how it has to be versus we can make our own way and start a cult and have people follow that and, just joking, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, because, like, it reminds me of something that a friend of mine told me once, that, you can only be 3 different things at once. Whether it's like a student, like a son, or like a father, or like, maybe he meant it even like, in a more immediate sense. Like, you can only be like sitting in a room, eating a sandwich and living, or, and like, but yet we're not like constantly flicking through our brains to find, label for what we're experiencing. Although I will say I have had moments where I've felt more like that, where it was like I felt like I had to like think about breathing more, and like I was talking to my mom about this because we were just talking about stuff, and I was like, sometimes I just feel like I have to like tell myself to breathe, and I don't like that feeling. Like I hate being conscious of like, like like in out, breathe, blink, my eyes are getting dry. But I've had moments like that, and it's like, it's kind of like, it's humbling because we do need to focus. I mean, we were just talking about this, like yoga, like, you know, doing stuff like that, exercising, like, you know, being kind of like, you know, vigilant about, you know, your body and like, you know, you're the vessel that you have to think and feel and experience this universe or life. And like, sometimes we, you know, it's like, but at the same time, it's like taking things for granted, like, because again, it's like, you can't always be searching or obsessing over labeling your experience and like jotting down, but sometimes I think like, maybe that's how you unlock your writer's block or like, your communication limitations sometimes that you feel you might have, because like I'm just kind of theorizing on this. It's like kind of like based on my own experience that there's times where like I wish that I had said something other than I had said or didn't say at all. But today I was outside and I was just like, I was smoking a cigarette and this other guy was out there and I was like, I don't really have anything to say. But then like I said it. And like, as just the moment passed and like, you know, I don't feel now like that was a moment lost, because it's like you have to give yourself chances to like just be yourself and like unwind or do whatever you're doing and like, you know, trust your gut, trust your instinct, trust your intellect or however you're feeling, and just let things happen sometimes, and like, you know, not always feel like, you know, the moment or the gravity of the situation is upon your action or inaction, you know. And just to kind of summarize, there's a song by Rush. I don't, you know Rush?
Yeah.
The Free Will.
Yep.
And it's like whether you choose to decide, you still have made a choice. And it's like, you know, you can listen to, or you can choose a guide, a celestial voice, or give into like phantom. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, but basically, it's basically like kind of like the philosophy that I've been trying to embrace more, and like I feel really, really reassured by, is that phantom fears, celestial voices, is like, you know, choosing one. And I was talking about how like, you know, if I had to choose a celestial voice, like right now, one of them would be Bill Hicks, because it would be like somebody that is fucking funny and smart and like older than me, so he's like, you know, like he'd be like uncle or almost a father, I guess, age gap wise, but like just somebody that like I would be reassured by, like in a moment of like extreme befuddlement or vexed, you know, notion about what's going on in the universe. And I don't know. Yeah.
I hear you, man.
Yeah.
It can be complicated. I think as human beings, we have a tendency to overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
But that's just human nature, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just a lot more to take into consideration.
And it's like, you know, when people talk about like an example would be like when people get older, like, you know, they talk about like, oh, like, you know, my grandfather, he's older, you know, he doesn't give a fuck anymore, he says whatever on his mind, you know, that kind of example of something. And it's like, I thought about that, and it's like, I think about it now, and it's like, that'd be great, honestly. I mean, like, to live your life that way now, as opposed to like waiting until you're 70 or like retired to like stop giving a fuck about, you know, in a good way, about things, to the point to where, you know, whatever you say, it isn't inconsequential, but it's like you're based upon the merit of what you do, when you say it, your timing, like, but you're not consciously like grading yourself every step of the way to like make it to this point of where, like you were saying, like there's no level 99, you know, you've maxed out, you know, your meteoros, is that what it is? What's Cloud's thing? His limit breaker or whatever.
Meteor strike?
Yeah.
Or Knights of the Round?
Yeah, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
Be honest. Knights in the Round, probably the coolest. Well, there's Odin too, or whatever it's called in it.
Yeah.
The unicorn thing.
Right.
Yeah. They're all pretty good. Yeah. But yeah. I don't know, should we segue into Final Fantasy talk?
We can segue into anything we want, man. Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's a better life.
Yeah.
Outside of this one.
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice if we could make our lives more like our lives are in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that too is a lot of Final Fantasy lore is interpreted from shamanism and ceremonial magic and things like the Goetia and Jinn and, you know, evocation of spirits, you know, elementals, fire, air, water, earth. And I feel like Final Fantasy does a pretty good job of adapting different mythos and you know, spiritual concepts into a storyline, and well, obviously it's battle, but right. Life is kind of a battle in some sense, right. And that's like one of the nice quotes that I like by Aleister Crowley, which some people are hesitant to, you know, consider advice from, sure. But basically he said that he did not want the people that followed his ideas to just follow them at, you know, without, basically he didn't want followers. He wanted people to cut their own way through the woods, so to speak.
Right.
And I feel like that's what we're all doing in some sense. We're all interpreting things and using that knowledge to form our own understanding of how we perceive things. And that's cool, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously, there's different directions you can take that, whether it's the quote-unquote good or bad things that you do, but I don't know. It's just, it is what it is, I guess.
Well, like, staying on the topic of, it's Aleister, right? It's his first name?
Aleister Crowley.
Aleister Crowley. Is, when I was first introduced to some of his writings, which I'll be honest with you, I haven't read any of it, but I was shown his book, and I just kind of flipped through it, and I was looking at the pictures and stuff like that, and, like, I was like, you know, take it for what I'm saying, like, you know, I was like, I wasn't, like, scared of it. I was more like, well, this is, like, kind of like some, like, you know, you could say meddling or, like, you know, industrious or experimenting with, like, ancient mythology or, like, black magic or something that, like, I found to be interesting, but at the same time, like, I can be kind of hard to, like, get into, like, reading something about something, no matter how interesting the subject is or how interested somebody else is in it sometimes. Like, I'll get a book and I'll look at it and I'll, like, kind of, like, want to read it, but then I'll just kind of be like, you know, like, I don't know, I'll play a video game or watch a movie instead. And, like, I could see where, like, it'd be frustrating to, like, take somebody's work and, like, try to live by that for an extended period of time, to where, like, people meet you and they'd be like, it's like, you're really on that Aleister Crowley shit? Like, that's it?
Yeah.
Like, don't you get it? Like, it's not meant to be, like, this is the framework for which you, or the blueprint for how you live your life. And then you have people out there in the world who will say, like, I have all the answers, man. I'll teach you everything you need, and I'll show you exactly what you need. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. There's a lot of people out there that want to be that person. And it's like, I don't know why, but like that, some people are compelled that way, and if it's on the notion of power or ego or like, manifestation of like their ideals, it's kind of frustrating because it's like, I get it that there's merit to having a life where you teach people how to do things or show them how to do things, but at the same time, it goes back to being like so obsessed with one thing. It's like, where do you stop when you have people building you a pyramid? And like, you're like, whoa, I went too far.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't mean to do that.
Right.
I didn't want to send everybody in the desert to make me a giant pyramid with my face on it.
Yeah.
Giving you a thumbs up. It's kind of cool you did it, but, it was probably really hard to do.
Yeah.
And, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I get what you're saying too there, and that's kind of our predicament in a sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't have to be the monkeys that do what they see.
Right.
We can flip it on its head. We can, go around. We can take shortcuts. We can learn. We can do pretty much anything we set our minds to. The only thing holding us back from achieving what we want is ourselves. However, people choose to interpret that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people be like, well, life's too hard. Well, at the end of your life, you're not going to want to be sitting on your deathbed thinking like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
I just went to work every day and bought stuff and raised my family, and, it was a good life. It was easy.
Yeah.
Versus I had to go through some challenging times where I didn't know if I was going to make it. I contemplated giving up and killing myself and whatever, but I made it through those hardships and really became a stronger person in the end. And to me, that was worth more than any amount of money any person could ever have.
Yeah.
And guess what? It was probably one of the best stories or biographies in the history of the world, but I wasn't arrogant enough to feel like people need to hear my story. Not to say that they shouldn't, but
yeah.
I wasn't thinking, hey, I had this crazy, great life, and, I need to make a book and make money off this, and whatever. Right. Is more just like, shit happened, like, it was intense, I had a good time, I didn't know I was going to make it, I'm still making it, I still don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'm making it, and, what else can be said about that? It's just, it's perpetual. It's, I don't know what I'm really trying to say here, but something along the lines of yin-yang, golden spiral, creation, destruction, black holes, nebulas. It's a give and take relationship of these different processes and things that happen, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it kind of unlocked a thought in my brain that, it's kind of like, it's like this, it's like, which leads to like, there's like the theory or the thought, like, you think with your brain, you speak with your heart, or like somehow like, there's this difference between when we speak or think or feel that is like a correlation between like what is something of the heart, what do you value, like if you're, or trusting your gut. And it's like, is it somehow that it's like that we mentally, like, or do I mentally, like go to my gut, like I center myself at my stomach, in my actual abdomen, and say, like, you know, what do I feel about this? And I'll be like, you know what, maybe I don't like it. And then, like, but then, like, you know, if I ask myself, well, how's my heart feel about this? And it's like, you know, well, you know, maybe it'll be more, you know, emotionally tied to it than if I think analytically for a moment using my brain power or something. But, like, it's like, either way, it comes down to, or maybe it doesn't completely get focused to, it's still coming from one person, you know, it's genuinely from my own experience, and, like, it can be difficult because, like, you know, you don't want to, like, ruin the passion that is your life, or the passion in your life, or that you're seeking, or the things that you want to accomplish by, like, you know, overanalyzing it, or getting to the point to where you're so meticulous or detail-oriented that nothing ever makes you happy. But, like, part of being creative, or, like, having a vision for things and sticking to the vision that was so breathtaking, or, like, so, like, eye-opening to you when you had it, or a dream that you had, and, like, it's not, like, something that's negative, it's not reinforcing negative stereotypes or values, or, like, you know, some sort of correlation between, like, submission of others to, like, your ideals that, like, would be, like, enslavement, or, like, you know, it would bind people to some, you know, paradoxical, or, like, oxymoronic, stupid, you know, shallow existence, you know, because, like, that's not the, but that could be the stereotype for someone that has, like, grandiose ideals, or, like, you know, big picture kind of ideas for what they want. And it's like, and you gotta be like, no, that's not what I meant. You know, what I'm trying to say is, I think it'd be really cool if I could go to Colorado. You know?
You know what's funny about that? Just in that you said grandiose thinking.
Yeah.
Was when I was in the psych ward, one of the, like, aides told me that the psychiatrist had said that I had very grandiose thinking.
Right.
And I didn't deny that, but at the same time later on I was thinking to myself, like, how dare I think that we're just these microbes on a speck of dust floating around a bigger cloud of dust, swirling around among other big clouds of dust, swirling around in this big black open thing that we don't really have any idea what it is, but somehow we came to define it and think that we understand it. How dare I have grandiose thinking? But then it just made me think, like, well, it's all in how you perceive it, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's the macrocosm, the microcosm, and a lot of people are locked into their immediate existence of, this is what it is, this is what I have to do. There's no real point in me trying to understand anything other than that.
Right.
And then I've even gotten to the point where it's like, you know, it can be terrifying to try to understand things beyond the spectrum of what we have objectively defined. And even then, it's like, well, it's not for me to say what is or what is not going on. You know, whatever it may be, I'm not going to go into details about that. But just that, you know, you take it with everything else, that there's more to the story. You don't have to have the explanation for it, but you just, you know, you accept it and move on and do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel comfortable and fulfilled, whether it's physical activity, mental activity, spiritual activity.
Right.
There doesn't necessarily need to be all of the above or one or the other. It's just whatever helps you cope with your existence and feel like, hey, I matter. I may not love myself or, feel like I guess there's a few different ways that could be explained, but basically just that we seek meaning and we seek praise and acceptance, and it doesn't have to come from outside of ourselves, it has to come from within. And once you can do that, even if it's just for a little bit of time, just keep working on it. And if you're like me and you struggle and you have struggled, then you might have to go to extremes in order to interrupt those behaviors that detract from you finding equilibrium within yourself or a state of peace. But for example, like I would take my favorite things, whatever they were, and just write down just inspiring things that made me feel good, and just put post-it notes and little note cards and stuff everywhere, like in my car, on my dresser, all over my room. So I was always getting some sort of feedback that was saying, like, it's okay, like, you can focus on this, you can do this, and you can keep, working on these things to find meaning in your life. And even like alarms on my phone, pictures coming up on my desktop background, reminders, tattoos, and just like these mantras or affirmations to have a consistent, like, it's okay, just, have equanimity, have balance, accept, don't judge, don't overanalyze. I mean, you can. I don't recommend it, because I've been there and done it.
If you had to put a time limit on being super analytical about something, like to the point where you're overanalyzing something, but like maybe that would be like a good rule to follow. Like, I've never really thought about it like this, but like if I'm being superly analytical about something, maybe I should give myself 1 minute, or maybe 10 seconds, or like 5 seconds to do that, and just be like, alright, that's enough. Because it's like, it can be beneficial, like you said, in a way, but at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword, where it's like, it's kind of like living in the past, like thinking about things to the point to where, like, you can kind of feel, like, I could think about things or recall some things to where it feels like I'm almost going back in time. Like I'm time traveling in a way. I know I'm not, reversing the polarity of the planet or Superman and flying around it and turning back the clock on time, but it's enough to make you, like, almost feel like time stands still, or that you go back, and it's like, it's not necessarily the greatest feeling in the world, because then you have that detachment from where you are in the moment, and like your mind is racing somewhere else as opposed to where your body is. And it's like, I remember seeing a thing, it was on Carson Daly's show, and it was David Lynch, and he was talking about astral projection, and he was like, maybe you should try it. And I was like, I never really thought about it like that before, maybe I should. I don't really know how you do it, but he was basically just sitting in a chair, and like, you just like, say, I'm gonna astral project now, and projecting, and it just kind of call it what you want. It can be just thinking and meditating, and like, it's kind of like all these, like, we were talking about magic, we were talking about science, different theories, different rules, different learnings, teachings that, like, basically with Final Fantasy, you have Magitech, you have job skills, you have you're talking about like summoning like deities, demigods, all these different things, but at the same time it's in this complex realm in which there's like these like I can't remember which Final Fantasy it is, but there's like, you know, there's like these power hungry people that want to fight, and or they want to get all the, is it Magite or whatever the rock is, the magic stone
Materia.
That, thank you. That basically, or they want to get all the summons, and like, if you think about it, it's kind of like ridiculous to be like, hey, it's kind of like Neo Genesis Evangelion, where it's like, let's wait for all these teenagers to show up and save us. You know, give them swords, give them guns, give them everything, and then expect them to know what the fuck they're doing and be mature enough not to just blow each other up. But like, that's kind of like, the thing is that like, if you put yourself in that role and think like, do you really want to catch all the Pokemon? Why do you want to catch all the Pokemon? they're just doing their thing. Like, why don't you just let them live? Don't make them fight each other and then beat the shit out of each other and then recover it in like a med center. Send them to the hospital and make them feel better again. Because, you know, maybe you're like, basically like, it's like a dog fight or like cockfights, but it's like, it's supposed to be like this thing that brings people together, and it's like, it's kind of fucked up.
Well, that's kind of like war, in the sense that we are the Pokemon.
Right.
And we were caught by the government and given social security numbers, and, you know, obviously it was optional in some sense, but it, you know, those kind of analogies can be interpreted in different ways too. But, I mean, I know what you mean, and that's where it's like, you know, it's anyone's freedom of will to do that.
Right.
And then you have to take in consideration the golden rule of, would I want to be captured into a clay vessel or a Pokeball or any other thing that could contain me until my master says it's okay to come out, but you have to fight this other thing.
Motherfucker.
You know.
Yeah. What would your Pokemon name be then? 'Cause I think I'd go with Motherfucker. 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 Motherfucker.
I couldn't say at this juncture, but
no.
You know, I appreciate Pokemon. Maybe not as much as other people do, but it's, I think in a lot of ways, it's an escape, it's a vacation, it's something that if you obsess over like anything else, too much of a good thing can become a bad thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's good for people to branch out and experience things, even if it's virtual, that makes them feel empowered.
Right.
But if you can apply that same schematic to your life, then, you know, you can be anything that you want to be if you're empowered and you have that mindset. And I'm not necessarily saying like the law of attraction type stuff, but, you know, a lot of people hate on that. But at the same time, it's like, you look at any person who has become successful, what happened in their mind that made them become successful? Were they thinking like, oh, I'm just going to win the lottery, or they weren't even thinking about it, like, oh, I just somehow